Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast, Tuesday night. So those of you that listen on Steve Shetler Media on Thursday, a couple days old. So if transfer portal news happens or coaching hires, anything else like that, um, we are recording this on Tuesday night. Wednesday night did not work for us this week, so a day early. But really, the main topics: Iowa State men and women, Iowa women, a little bit of Iowa men, and then a little bit of transfer portal, coaching news, and then if we have time, we will talk Otani, and I think that's a big story that we'll get to just in a few weeks here. But I think more is going to come out with that. I think that story is very interesting, and I haven't dug a lot into it yet, but I think that may have a chance to be bigger than people want it to be right now.
Yeah, that's definitely going to get bigger, and I'm sure more stuff's going to come out in the coming weeks.
So let's go ahead and start with Iowa State. Let's kind of recap it real quick. Two double-digit wins. I mean, neither one of them were really at risk ever for losing the game. Complete opposite starts, though. Thursday night, crazy, again, late tip, or not as late, 6:30, whatever, so, later in the day, prime time, start out hot, and then just kind of cruise. It did get to I think 4 at one time, but then I would say went right back on at like a 10-0 run and just kind of cruise the rest of the way. Just, real good night by Monsilovich and, just everybody involved. Everybody just had a real good, really exactly what a number 2 seed is supposed to do to a 15 seed, and just made quick work, but absolute craziness in Omaha from everything that I've heard. I was not there for Thursday. We'll get to Saturday here in a little bit, but just exactly what they're supposed to do. Everybody's happy. Everybody's good. And then Saturday, um, a little more nervous. I mean, and we've talked about this, and it's not good. It's not healthy. Just every time they play, it's just like just a little pit in your stomach. You always have just that little bit of nervousness because they've lost as a 2 seed to Hampton in 2001. I was in Breckenridge, Colorado. It was at Boise. I mean, just so bad things happen. And then the second round, 2 versus a 7. Washington State has the second tallest slash longest team in all of basketball. They beat Arizona twice. They are, going forward, they're not, but they are a Power 5, Power 6 team. So they're used to playing against teams like Iowa State. Arizona's really good. UCLA historically, I mean, they've got teams that are good. Now, I think the Pac-12 was down this year, but overall, they're used to playing that. And they beat Drake, who was the sentimental favorite out of Omaha, obviously being Drake, just a couple hours away there in Des Moines, and everybody was talking about excited about Drake Iowa State matchup, and that's a whole nother story where they don't play anymore. And then they went to the Big Four, so they played every other year. Now they don't play at all. And then, could, Drake, chomping at the bit to play him. But Washington State made the plays at the end of the Drake game to move on to play Iowa State. And Drake didn't. And then Iowa State starts the complete opposite, absolutely horrible. I think they were down 9-2, and then, went on their run and kind of just took the lead by halftime and then just kind of coasted the rest of the way, another double-digit win, getting to the Sweet 16. Now, Thursday night when they play, I'm going to have another pit in my stomach, but not as much. The season will not be a failure now. I think, and we had talked about this, and I think we had Zach on earlier. We talked, if Iowa State didn't make the Sweet 16, it was, you don't want to necessarily say a failure, but just they didn't live up to expectations. Now they're in the Sweet 16. Yes, they're favored against Illinois. Yes, they're the 2 seed, so it'd be really nice to get another one. It'd be disappointing if they lose Thursday night, but it's not a failure. the season is not a failure because Sweet 16 is always nice. Now, when you get past that, I think it's gravy. Then you get to Saturday, then you're playing for all the marbles.
Yeah, you said it best. Now that they're in the Sweet 16, their next matchup versus Illinois is going to be a tough one. But going back to that Washington State game, I know there were some people that thought maybe they could be a little bit of a surprise team, as you mentioned, all their height and everything. They had some good wins on the season. Iowa State, especially in the second half, was able to kind of go into cruise mode, like you said about the first game too. So a pretty comfortable win there to get to the Sweet 16. I would like to see him, get to that Elite Eight. But you're right. Now you kind of get that. You can relax a little bit because we've talked about getting to the Sweet 16 is really tough, especially in the men's tournament. So now that they're there, I think they're a 1.5 point favorite versus Illinois.
Yeah, 1.5 to 2.5. I haven't looked today. I know at one time I think they were 2.5, or at least 2. So yeah, I mean it's really a coin flip, and it should be. It's the 2 versus 3 seed. That's another storyline just with the men's tournament in general. For the most part, it's been chalk. I mean, a few upsets here or there, but then, especially in the second round, all the favorites won except for a couple. I mean, it truly was. You had the Auburn upset, you had the Duquesne upset, you had just a couple here or there, but overall, all the ones are in, all the 2s are in, and I believe only Baylor is the only 3 seed that's not there is Baylor. So you've got 8, 11 of the top 12 teams still playing.
Yeah, definitely a lot of chalk this year. You always think that you might get one of those 9 to 13 seeds to sneak through, and not so much with this year. So yeah, a lot of chalk.
NC State's the only double-digit seed left.
Oh, NC State. Sorry, I forgot about them. What time does Iowa State play?
Thursday, 9:15, but it'll be, how it is. It'll be closer to 9:30 Central Time. So it's the late game. The first game starts at 6:30, I think, in Boston. UConn versus San Diego State. So a rematch of the national championship game. So that's been kind of the weird thing for Connecticut is in the second round they played Florida Atlantic, who was in the Final Four last year, and now they play San Diego State, who they did play for the national championship. So they played teams that had that experience. Florida Atlantic returned almost everybody. They just didn't kind of catch that fire and didn't have as good a regular season. And then San Diego State, that's just what the Mountain West is going to be. Their top couple teams are going to be 4, 5, 6. That's just what they are. And they're a 5 seed. So, and it's a team obviously they match up with and know, but UConn's really, really, really good. 1.5. It's right there on the bottom of ESPN. Iowa State favored by 1.5, according to, well, I'm guessing it's ESPN Bet because that's ESPN's thing. So, but yeah, so UConn's going to be a pretty good favorite there, and it's going to be it'll be interesting to see actually how many people stay for the game. Because like I said, the game will not start till like 10:30 on a Thursday. It's not even Friday night. If it was Friday night, it's a different story. But it's Thursday night, almost 10:30 start. Will the UConn fans leave? Or will they stay? Interesting to see. Iowa State, over the last couple of weeks has played in front of essentially home crowd, all in Kansas City and then in Omaha, both dates. And they will not have too many fans in Boston. Few reasons for it. One, there's a lot of fans, and I am one of them. I ended up going to Omaha on Saturday morning and hung out with buddies of ours, Doug DeCock, Mark Willett, Matt Carricker was there, and then we met some other people there that were friends of Doug's and stuff. But so I spent money there. I did not go to the game. I didn't pull the trigger with the tickets when it was like 150 or so. I'm like, I made a bet with myself. I said if I got down to 120, I'd buy it, and they never got there. And actually, a little surprising, right about when the game started, they actually went back up about $100. It's kind of weird, but there still was a game after Iowa State. It was Illinois versus Duquesne. So I'm I'm thinking some people there were kind of holding out as well, and then decided to get um, tickets for that game, and then go ahead and just watch Iowa State as well. So I spent money in Omaha. I spent money in Kansas City, and I'm not the only one. And I wasn't there for very much of either one. I was just there for a day for both of them. But there were people there for the women's tournament in Kansas City. There were people. Then they either went home, probably went home, came back for the men, and then went out to Omaha. So they've spent a lot of time and money doing that. And flying to Boston is not easy from Des Moines. It's just not easy to get there. I don't think there's a direct flight. If it is, there's like one, and I don't know the time. The flights I saw were anywhere from about $800 to $1,000 on the times that I needed. I mean, I guess, if you could have flown out today or something, or Wednesday, probably better. But I was going to try to fly out Thursday morning. I knew I wasn't, but I just clicked on it to see what was happening, because it kind of worked out. I don't have school on Friday. So it wouldn't have been as big a deal with school and everything. And then, okay, so you do that. Hotel, anywhere close that you need to do, $500 a night. And then you have to get in the game. Well, UConn assumed, a few weeks ago or a month ago, they were, when they knew they were going to be a top seed, they knew they would be there. So they bought all the tickets, I'm sure. And it's about $400, $500 to get in the game. So you're talking a couple $1,000 simply to get to the game, plus your $18 beers, plus just your food, plus just everything else that comes with it. So you're in for a few $1,000s. Now, and I'm one of these people that if somehow they can get out of Boston and go to Phoenix, then you're going to have a whole bunch of other people jumping on, because Final Four is different. You're going to pay more for that ticket and maybe even a hotel room, but it's the Final Four, and you don't get there very often. And I'm going to have a conversation with myself and my father, and we'll see. But yeah, if somehow they would get to Phoenix, there'd be a good Iowa State contingent. But this weekend in Boston, there will not be. There is only, and this isn't just an Iowa State thing, but there are only 1,000 tickets available through Iowa State. And that includes the family, obviously the families get tickets, everything. So that just takes away from it. So there's 100 tickets just from family and everything of the, and then I know it took, the only people that even get a chance to buy tickets would be, I think, the directors. So it was like $10,000 or $15,000 donation just to even have a chance to buy tickets through the university, which would be face value tickets.
Definitely expensive to get out there, especially like you said, all the folks that went down for the Big 12 tournament and then went to Omaha. That's a lot of money in general. Plus, probably maybe people had to use some vacation time.
Mm-hmm.
That's always another thing. Yeah, getting to Boston from Des Moines, I assume, is not easy. I don't know if you have to fly to Chicago or Detroit, St. Louis. I don't know where you go to make your connections, but
probably just depends on your flight out.
Yep, if you're talking that much for a plane ticket, hotels, and tickets just to get in the game, like you said, probably about $2,000, give or take. And then you've got all your lifts and taxis, food and drink. That'd be a pricey one. But if they do make the Final Four that you mentioned and go to Phoenix, that may be a little bit easier to do and to get to, obviously.
Yeah, there's direct flights from Des Moines to Phoenix. I think Allegiant flies there, and I think Southwest has a direct flight. So I think there's more than one. And then it makes it, playing Saturday night or evening at least, you could probably find a flight Friday afternoon or Saturday morning if needed. The problem with the Final Four is you kind of got to commit a little bit, and maybe I just don't fly enough, and maybe some people just buy a one-way ticket and then come back. But like, if they would lose Saturday night, I'd want to come right back Sunday. Just then I wouldn't have to take that extra day of work off, anything else like that. But yet, if they win, obviously you're staying. I mean, you're staying to Monday night and figure the rest out later.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another conversation you have to do too if they make it. First, you have
Yep.
to decide if you're going, and then you have to decide, are you committing just for the Final Four, or do you commit for the championship game too if they make it? So, yeah, a lot of tough decisions for the Iowa State fans, and the first will be starting obviously this week in Boston.
And that's a bigger picture, conversation that we probably need to have coming up in the summer when there's less time is just the price of all this. And football is going to become this way too. Used to be you just had the one bowl game, you could save up, that was your vacation if you wanted to make 3 or 4 days out of it. But now with this expanded playoff, let's say Iowa State gets in as an 11 seed. First round game, they go play LSU, just for an example. Okay. That'd be really cool. I'd love to go to Baton Rouge December 21st, whatever day it is, watch a game. Okay. You win that one, you come back. Got a week later, now you're playing in Pasadena in the Rose Bowl. You win that one. Now you're in the semi-final or final, whatever round we're in. I mean, you're again vacation time, money, flight. I mean, bowl games are going to be flights. I mean, you're not going to be able to drive to all these places. And it's going to be 3-4 games if you would get to a championship. And there are not very many people that I know that can commit to both the money and the time. Some of them have the time, but not the money. And then some of them have the money, but not the time. It's just, and again, you just have to kind of pick and choose.
Exactly. That's especially when you get down to the Final Four teams there in the expanded playoff. It might turn into the Super Bowl a little bit, where it's maybe celebrities.
It's just corporate.
Obviously, it's going to be people with a lot of money, corporate events. The first round games, I think they're going to be on campus, right? So that's going to be a little bit different.
Like I said,
but
if Iowa
once you
State
start
would
narrowing
get
it down,
yeah, Iowa State gets into the playoff and they go to LSU for an example, there'll be as many Iowa State fans that LSU would let in that place. I mean, obviously, they're going to have their huge home field advantage, but there'll be plenty of Iowa State fans that will buy them on third, the Stub Hubs and Seat Geeks, as long as LSU fans are selling them.
yeah, and that'll be good. Even if you can't go to the game, maybe go down and tailgate, check out the area. I'm sure a lot of fans will do that too. So, yeah, the prices are definitely going up, and with the expanded playoff, that's a whole nother conversation too. Of if your team gets in, how many games can you go to? If you think your team's going to be really good in the season, do you start saving up money, preparing for that? Because that's going to be even more flights, time off work, all that kind of stuff.
And then, here's we're 20 minutes in or wherever we are in. Now let's talk about the game against Illinois. Complete opposite styles. Illinois, number one offense in the country. Iowa State, the number one defense in the country. Now, if you had to choose one, I do think you want the number one defense, because number one offense can go awry. Just shots don't get made. One night you're 2 of 20 from 3-point range. That does happen. Defense, for the most part, is usually pretty good. Now, I will say the defense wasn't outstanding in either of the first 2 games for Iowa State. It was good. I mean, it's always good, but it wasn't outstanding. And you probably better be pretty outstanding against Shannon Jr. and Hawkins and really Shannon Jr. He's 6'6". He's big. Iowa State does not have anybody like him. Be interesting to see who they put on him. Lipsey's our number one defender, but he's only 6'1", maybe 6'2" at best. Gilbert 6'4". He can go on him. Or do you go with a little more physical, your Trey King-ish, 6'9", bigger body, but I don't know if he can stay with them, because Shannon can shoot the three, he'll drive, he'll do it all. He's a very, very, very good player. And so it'll be interesting to see, and I'm sure all of 3 of them will take turns on him. And that's the great thing about Iowa State is you don't have just one guy that can, put Litzim on him for 10 minutes, and then you go Gilbert on him for 10 minutes, and then you put King on him for 5, and then you come back. And so that's going to be the matchup and the setting that it's just going to be interesting to see, and it will decide the basketball game. I think if Shannon goes off, Iowa State could lose now. Or do you just say, Shannon, go get 30 and then try to hold everybody else out? I mean, that's when you have a player of that caliber, that's what you do. Like, he's not Caitlin Clark, but he is that to Illinois' team. Now they got Damask and, like I said, Hawkins. And I mean, they've got other really good players, but Shannon's the one that runs the show, I believe.
Yeah, you wonder if you defended with committee like you mentioned, or you try to just let him get his and let all the other defenders get back and hope you can shut down the other guys as you mentioned. What's kind of your prediction on the game? Is there a score you'd like to see him held to since they're the number one offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want it in the low 70s. High 60s would be really nice, but I don't know. And this is the difference in this Iowa State team than the last couple is Iowa State can go score 75. They can. And they can score more if needed, as long as they're hitting shots. If Monsilovic hits shots, Iowa State wins the basketball game. I think that's really what it comes down to. If he scores over 15 points on, you have to be relatively good percentage. He can't shoot 20. He won't. He doesn't. But if he scores over 15 points on less than 10 shots, we probably win the basketball game. I mean, I really think that. Because, Lipsey's going to get his, I would think. Gilbert will get his. Curtis Jones has been getting his almost every game. It really comes down to Momcilovic. He was really good in the Big 12 tournament, and he was really good against Washington State.
State can get it done. There's a few pools I'm in, and most of them I just took Iowa State to at least get to the Final Four, if not go all the way. So, for making a little bit of money, I need your Cyclones to keep on winning.
Yeah, so just, let's, kind of talk real quick. Zach, his Final Four was Illinois, North Carolina, Purdue, and Houston. So obviously all four of them are still alive. He had Purdue versus Illinois in the final and Purdue winning it all. You had the Cyclones, North Carolina, Houston, and Creighton. Iowa State and Creighton. Creighton survived, but they are there. Iowa State and Creighton. And then I think you had Creighton winning it. Purdue and Houston. For me, Arizona and UConn, and then Houston and UConn, with UConn winning it for me. Those kind of the recaps of our Final Fours. Any other, kind of big picture men's tournament, like we kind of said at the start, pretty much chalk. 11 of the top 12 seeds are still in it. And I think that comes to the transfer portal. I really do. You look at Damask for Illinois was one of the best Valley players. I think he was a 3-time All Valley player at Southern Illinois. Now he's playing for Illinois. Ben Creaky played at Valpo, was one of the better players in the league. Might have been player of the year 2 years ago. Is now at Iowa. And Iowa's done everything. But just those type of players don't stay in the mid majors. So, can those teams, some of those teams still get in, but their best players transfer, just like South Dakota State, that their bigger kid is in the transfer portal, and Iowa State are all after. I mean, they made the tournament. Best player goes in the portal. Iowa State just signed a guy from Charlotte, same type of program. So those best players are now playing at Iowa State. And then now the issue is Iowa State gets players taken from them and they go to Kansas and Duke. So the rich are getting richer, and those, mid-major, low-major teams are getting to the tournament the same, but they don't have that one player that can carry them. Because those kids are...
It's definitely got something to do with it. And then the older teams too. Teams that have been together for a while and have that good camaraderie. I think that's helping. But yeah, you're talking about smaller schools are going to lose them to the bigger schools, and so on and so on. So yeah, it's kind of interesting though with Kentucky losing with all the players that they get, the great recruits. I guess that's sort of a big topic that we didn't have written down, but Kentucky losing early again, it's definitely a big story.
Well, and it is truly, it's why Omaha Blue is not playing at Iowa State. The three big guys in front of him are 23 and 24 years old. They're 5th and 6th year guys. And that's what Oakland was. You know, that kid that hit 8 threes or 10, I think 10 threes overall. I think he hit 8 in the first half. Is a 6th year player, I'm pretty sure. Started out D2, 0 stars, beat a whole roster full of NBA players. He's going to be selling insurance or pharmaceutical sales next year. And half of Kentucky is going to be in the NBA. But he's 24 years old and they're 18. It's different. Physically, mentally, emotionally, everything. And they know what college basketball is about. They've been around the block. I mean, it's just like I'm much better now than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You're just better. It's just, there's nothing you can do about it. Those kids were in college when the kids from Kentucky or like Omaha Blue were still in junior high. If you look at it that way. And so they're more skilled, but in a one-game setting, and that's what makes the basketball tournament so fun. Is in football, there is no way that, let's use it kind of, Mississippi State is not going to lose to Oakland in football or a team like that. But basketball, you need one person to get fire, and you only need 2 really good players, and you can be a really good basketball team.
That's the thing with football too. Most of these really good programs, they're not starting a bunch of freshmen right out of high school. These guys
Nope.
usually have to wait a couple years to see the field.
Right. Yep.
They're more grown men and experience, kind of what you're explaining with some of these older basketball teams.
Yeah, and if they are playing as a freshman, they're a freak. Like Caden Proctor, Alabama. He beat out guys older than him because that's a whole nother discussion. But he's just better. He's just bigger, faster, stronger, better. And that's why he'll be a very high draft pick when his time is ready to go to the NFL. That's what it takes to be. And you think about even the NBA, how many rookies, unless they're just an absolute freak, come in and play right away? They're not anymore. You don't see the Zion Williamson. Those kids aren't coming in anymore and dominating like that. They draft them. Over half the league has spent time in the G League. And then it takes a little bit of time. And I don't know what the difference is. They're better athletes today than ever. But I don't know if they're skilled basketball players. And we're going to talk about this with the Iowa State women and the Iowa women. The women's game is more fun to watch. They're better basketball players because their game's not above the rim. They make free throws. They make the right plays. They set good screens. They shoot better. Like Emily Ryan scored 36 points against Stanford and did not miss a free throw. That's the only way you stay in the game. You put Iowa State men's team up at the free throw line like that, they'll lose that game in regulation, and it won't be close because they'll shoot 65% from the free throw line instead of 95%. Caitlin Clark doesn't miss. Kate Martin doesn't miss free throws. Stolke misses free throws. That's the only one on the Iowa team that misses free throws. Audie Crooks is the only one for Iowa State that misses free throws. And they still shoot 67%, which would be above average for men.
It's definitely more fun to watch, in my opinion. Like you talk about this, they probably focus more on the fundamentals of the game, whereas a lot of the young men coming up out of high school into college, it's probably more that AAU style where maybe they're not focusing on the fundamentals as much as they should, just getting points. So I agree with you. I think the women's is more fun to watch, but that's just my opinion.
Well, here's what it is. You look at Hassan Ward for Iowa State. You cannot teach what he does. He's 6'9", 6'10", an athletic freak. That's what men's basketball is. And then you'll work on a little bit of basketball skill. But you don't have, Caitlin Clark, everybody can play like Caitlin Clark and Steph Curry. Not everybody can play like Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. But the men's basketball, you have to have a few guys on your team that are 6'8", 6'9", super athletic. You have to. You don't have a choice. Doesn't matter if they're really that good at basketball. You have to be an athletic freak at 6'8", 6'9". And then hopefully you work on some skills and you get better and better. But you can't teach 6'8", 6'9", and super athletic. Those kids are just gifted, and then you just work on it.
Definitely can't teach that. And in the men's game, you got to have height. You have to have those 6'8", 6'9", maybe a 6'10" guy. And, it's more at the rim, obviously, than the women's game.
Well, you look at Robert Jones for Iowa State. He was awful 2 years ago. Awful. And he's worked his tail off just to get okay. He's not an all-conference player. He's just not making a mistake every time he has the ball now. It's not, oh my, get rid of the ball. But he's 6'11". Can't not teach that.
Oh, I don't think you can. I think you're born with that or you're not.
Yep. So, and he's worked his tail off, and he's made himself a great player. That's why Iowa State is a number 2 seed, favored to get to the final 8 teams. I mean, that's because he's worked his tail off. But, when he was 17, 18, 19 years old, he went to Denver from Minnesota. So obviously, none of the Big 10 teams wanted him. None of the Big 12 teams wanted him out of high school. I mean, when you're 6'11", I mean, I don't care who you are. You go to a Division I program, you're a good basketball player. But if you're a really good basketball player, you don't have to go to Denver out of Minneapolis.
You're really good. You're definitely going to have offers from the bigger schools rather than DU.
Yep. So, all right. Well, let's take a quick break here, and we'll come back, talk Iowa women, Iowa State women, and then finish up with a little bit of Iowa men. So we'll come back for the second half of Morgan Ask 4 podcast after this.